Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, which is going to discuss the vRealize Business Suite of products. vRealize Business is a relatively new addition to the vCloud suite in VMware, and was previously known as IT Business Management, or ITBM. In general, vRealize Business is trying to add the business aspect of IT to the life of our users. Usually, VMware addresses the needs of the cloud administrator, and this is especially true with products from the MBU, or Management Business Unit. vRealize Business is different. The persona that we are trying to address here is at the executive level, such as the Director of Cloud or CIO. In some organizations, it may be known as the Head of Infrastructure and Operations. What we're trying to do is to help the executive talk in business terms that he understands. For example, an executive does not know what a cluster is or what capacity he has. The CIO knows how to talk about capital and operating expenditure, because the executive generally talks in terms of dollars. So vRealize Business is all about helping the cloud administrator manage his technology infrastructure more like a business, and communicate with his peers in terms that the financial people can understand. vRealize Business consists of 3 editions: Standard, Advanced, and Enterprise, each of which comes to answer a different need of the IT and Cloud Operations Manager. The Standard Edition tells us how much an organization's virtual infrastructure costs, as well as how much each individual virtual machine costs. The Advanced Edition will tell us how much an organization's IT costs, and map that cost to the individual business units inside the organization. The Enterprise Edition will let us know if our vendors are meeting their service level agreements, or SLAs. In the diagram, you can see some of the information the IT manager might wish to know. Regarding suppliers, are our vendors complying with their service level agreements? What is the unit cost of each IT service that they are providing? Regarding customers, are we complying with the service level agreements we've committed to our customers? Can we be more cost efficient? Regarding management, what is the total cost of ownership, or TCO, for each service in IT? Do our IT costs meet company budgets? Regarding business units, how much IT resources does each BU consume, and are there more cost-effective alternatives, such as public cloud offerings? With vRealize Business Standard, we are trying to provide cost transparency for the executive level. You just install vRealize Business Standard, connect it to your vCenter, wait a few minutes depending on the size of the vCenter, and without doing any additional configuration, you can find out how much the data center is costing you. It's amazing, but most of the cloud directors that we have spoken to actually have no idea how much their virtual infrastructure is costing them. The ability to provide this information to them, and so quickly, is a really astounding business proposition. In addition, not only can you see how much the data center costs you, but you can also break down the cost into hardware, networking, facilities, etc. And by allocating these costs, you can see exactly how much each virtual machine costs. So now, when the manager of cloud operations is asked, how much does my virtual machine cost? The answer should be easy to find out. vRealize Business Standard is packaged as a virtual appliance and must have access to 1 or more VMware vCenter servers. Once vRealize Business Standard gains visibility of the virtual infrastructure, this data will be collected at regular intervals and processed by the vRealize Business Engine. At that time, vRealize Business will be able to calculate statistics and usage of the virtual and physical machines in the data center. One of the most remarkable things about vRealize Business Standard is that once you have provided the access to your vCenters, there is no need to configure anything. vRealize Business comes with an out-of-the-box reference database which contains cost data for every piece of the virtual infrastructure, virtual machines, storage, as well as network. You just wait a few minutes, then go to the reports and dashboards to see the full cost details of the virtual infrastructure. In the next 4 slides, I would like to show you an overview of some of the main features of vRealize Business Standard and how you can automatically discover the cost of your virtual data center, prepare cost comparisons for private and public cloud offerings, find out which business units are consuming services in the virtual data center, and check if your business units are within budget. It's important to note that vRealize Business Standard could be either a chargeback or a showback solution. Now, what do I mean by this? Chargeback is the process of IT raising an internal bill to charge IT users for their usage. In Showback, IT users are not billed. They are merely shown the cost of their usage. Showback provides the transparency to enable a business to understand its technology costs and take action where necessary. In the overview screen, we can see how much our virtual infrastructure costs. The column on left displays the total cloud cost. This cost is based on data received from the reference database. The reference database contains the estimated cost of every element in the virtual data center. It is based on market research, and our tests have shown that the costs are usually within 10% of actual costs reported by our customers. You can also see a distribution to cost drivers, for example, storage, labor, and network. The costs can also be divided into CapEx and OpEx. CapEx, or capital expenditure, is any expense that is incurred to create future benefit, for example, buildings, machinery, or upgrades. OpEx, or operating expenditure, are expenses for the day-to-day functioning of a business, for example, salaries, rent, or maintenance. The column in the middle displays the operational analysis. These are the services I provide and what costs the largest amount of money. By looking at the cloud resources pie chart, you might be able to pinpoint if any of the resources, say RAM or operating systems, are hogging most of the resources. In addition, you can see how much of the cost is actually allocated. To explain what I mean, imagine you just bought a monster server that could host 10 virtual machines, but you actually only have one VM on the server. Then we would say that just 10% of the cost has been allocated. The column on the right displays consumption analysis. Here we can see which business units are consuming services in the virtual data center. In this example, 3 departments consume about 2/3 of the services. You can also see which business units' consumptions have changed the most in dollar terms during the last month. In the cloud comparison screen, you can compare the cost of your private cloud to what it would cost if you decided to host your virtual data center on a public cloud offering, such as Amazon Web Services, AWS, VMware vCloud Air, or Azure. You can compare the cost for the entire data center or for just a sample subgroup, such as 10 virtual machines with a particular configuration. By using what-if scenarios, you can see if your private cloud is cheaper than the public cloud offerings, or more expensive, so that your organization's CIO can decide where to best house your virtual data center. By the way, you can also add any other public cloud vendor as well. For example, your organization may be contemplating a hosting solution provided by Rackspace. If you have Rackspace's price list in the form of an Excel spreadsheet, then you can easily upload this data into vRealize Business Standard and compare it to the cost of the private cloud you are currently using. It's important to note that there are many other factors that will go into making such a decision. Not all can be converted into dollar terms. For example, data transfer also costs money. Another factor that might also need to be considered is data security. Organizations with sensitive data may have special requirements when hosting in a public cloud offering. However, the main costs related to capital and operating expenses can be calculated automatically, making this a really powerful tool. In the consumption analysis screen, we wish to determine who consumes the resources in the virtual data center, the purpose for which they are being consumed, and the costs associated with the various resources. In this report, you can view consumption for each virtual data center or for just one specific center. The consumers list displays a list of business units. For each business unit, you can view the number of virtual machines as well as the total cost for the business unit. The horizontal bar shows by color how the cost is divided by each of the resources: CPU, RAM, storage, and operating system. You can also click on a business unit to get more specific information regarding how consumption is used within that business unit. The information in this report can help in budgeting and comparison across different consumer groups within the organization. In the budget management screen, you can set a budget for any consumer within the organization, then compare the actual cost to the budgeted cost. If vRealize Business Standard is being used for Showback, then we expect the difference between actual and budgeted costs to be zero. On the other hand, if your organization is a cloud provider, you will probably want to make a profit, so comparing the actual cost to the budget can let you know how much money you are making. Now that you've been familiarized with some of the business value of vRealize Business Standard, I would like to show you how all the different parts interact with each other. Firstly, it is necessary to install 3 virtual appliances. The first vApp is the vRealize Business Standard vApp, which comes with a Tomcat application server containing the vRealize Business Application, as well as a vPostgres database. The second vApp is the Cafe appliance, such as vRealize Automation. The third vApp is the Identity or SSO appliance. The vRealize Business Application downloads a reference database, which can also be updated at regular intervals, say on a monthly basis. In addition, vRealize Business Advanced can access data from vRealize Business Standard and perform further post-processing, and we will discuss this later on in the presentation. At the bottom, you can see the range of virtual data centers which vRealize Business Standard is able to access. These include vCenter Server, vCloud Director, vCOps, or vRealize Automation. In addition, you can access public clouds such as Amazon Web Services, or VMware vCloud Air, or Azure. To access the database, you can either run SQL queries inside the virtual appliance, or take an entire database dump if requested by support. We are now going to discuss the second tier in the vRealize Business Suite, which is the Advanced Edition. It is geared for more mature customers with a better understanding of their IT infrastructure. The persona of interest to us here is the CIO, and the question he will be interested in answering is, how much does my IT cost? It's really amazing how many IT managers have no idea how much their IT is costing the organization. For example, how much does an email box cost? We may be spending X dollars on Outlook and Exchange, but there are also added labor and hardware costs. Can we calculate the unit cost of a mailbox? Management might be interested in moving to corporate Gmail and needs a way of comparing the price per mailbox and find out which is more cost effective. Another question the CIO may want to ask is how much the in-house CRM solution costs, and if it is worthwhile migrating to a hosted solution such as Salesforce. In addition, not all departments may be using the CRM equally, so who are the main users of this tool? Let's see what we know about our organization's IT and how we can put together the building blocks for our cost analysis. First of all, there is the General Ledger, or GL, which is a data repository holding a complete record of all financial transactions that take place in the organization. Then we may have usage statistics pertaining to the different services provided by IT, such as email, storage, or telephony. Next, we need to find a way to divide the cost. A server may be used by various applications, and each application may be used by different business units. A simple way might be to divide the cost by headcount, but to get a more accurate computation, we still want to use actual usage statistics if such data exists. The way vRealize Business Advanced does this is by creating a cost model to track all costs from the general ledger and all the way through the organization to the individual business units. So let's build our organization's cost model. Firstly, we place the general ledger, which is the source of our cost information, on the very left. The general ledger usually tracks every cost to a cost account. IT cost accounts will include databases, network, IT development, storage, security, and more. Each of these incurs costs from the general ledger relating to labor, hardware, software, facilities, and so on. We still don't know, however, how to allocate each of these cost accounts to the various business units. As I mentioned, a simple way of doing this would be to divide the cost according to each department's headcount. For example, if your department accounts for 10% of the employees, then you will account for 10% of the costs. Many IT organizations actually do it this way, but we are looking for a more accurate and automated way of dividing up the cost according to actual usage. The missing link between IT cost accounts and business units are the services that each cost center provides to the BU. However, we still need a way to allocate costs from the IT cost accounts to services, and from the services to the business units, and there doesn't seem to be a direct link that connects all the pieces. The solution used in vRealize Business Advanced is to differentiate between technical services and business services. Technical services, such as storage and servers, have a direct relation to the IT cost accounts, while business services, such as email and CRM tools, combine many technical services together to provide benefits to the end user. This is how the cost model looks inside the vRealize Business Advanced user interface. The cost model contains all the cost groups in the organization. You will see that the entities are arranged in columns. We will call each of these a level. In this cost model, there are 9 columns, or levels. In the first level at the very left, we see the general ledger, which is the source of our cost information. In the next 2 levels, we see the cost accounts, such as hardware, labor, and facilities. The next 4 levels contain the technical services, such as physical servers, storage, and network. The level second to right contains business services, such as applications, client computing, and email. Finally, at the very right, we see the organization's business units. Each entity or cost group displays the amount of cost, and by opening each entity, you will also be able to drill down and see full details pertaining to the costs within that group, as well as the allocation rules that define how the costs are directed from one entity to another through the cost model. It should be noted that this is the out-of-the-box cost model, which comes by default with the application. You can choose to use this cost model or to modify it to comply with your organization's business logic. Another useful feature of the cost model is the ability to import data directly from vRealize Business Standard, so that you can analyze your virtual as well as physical data centers. vRealize Business Advanced also comes with out-of-the-box reports and dashboards. One of the most popular of these is the CIO Dashboard. It contains financial information of interest to the Chief Information Officer, which can assist in determining the most efficient IT policy. You can also create custom reports and dashboards and configure them to be distributed by email at regular intervals to an email distribution list. I'd like to summarize how we can get data into vRealize Business Advanced and process this data. Unlike vRealize Business Standard, which collects and processes the data automatically, the Advanced Edition is highly configurable, with a designer functionality that allows you to collect almost any data and process it in any way you desire. Here are the main steps involved in configuring vRealize Business Advanced. The first step is to set up adapters to collect data from external data sources. These data sources could be flat files, database tables, or even data entered manually into web forms. Once they are set up, you can schedule the adapters to import new data at set intervals, say every business day or once a month. The second step is to manipulate the data using flows. Each flow contains a set of operators that can filter data, add new data fields, join multiple data sources, or aggregate data by region or time period. Next, we need to set up the cost model using manipulated data from the flows. Finally, we will display reports and dashboards in the UI. You can also email the reports or export to a spreadsheet or Word document. In addition to being able to access vRealize Business Advanced on your screen or laptop, you can also access it using an iPad application. The iPad application can be downloaded for free from the App Store and displays some informative reports about your cost of IT. In this way, IT executives can be better aligned with business demands and optimize cost by going to the end users and actually showing them how they consume IT resources. The iPad application provides an intuitive user interface which allows the user to focus on specific cost objects and drill down inside them. The reports in the iPad app are heat maps, which display information visually by size and color. The size of each region is proportional to the cost, and the color corresponds to the budget, so that cost objects that are over budget have a darker color, and ones that are under budget have a lighter color. You can see here how the iPad app is deployed. You download the app for free from the App Store, then enter a URL together with your credentials in order to access an instance of vRealize Business Advanced. It doesn't make any difference whether vRealize Business Advanced is installed on-prem or in a VMware hosted SaaS environment, as the iPad app should be able to access either one. Another challenge that arises in IT organizations is the ability to know if our providers are complying with the service levels they've committed to in contract. For example, you may outsource to an external help desk, and the help desk has committed to minimum uptime or to maximum support response times. Amazingly, many organizations have no idea if their providers are in compliance or breach of the contracts they have signed. In particular, there may be penalties for incompliance, making it even more important to know this information. Although service level agreements or SLAs are also used outside of IT, they are ideal to use in an IT framework, since the data is usually readily available in the form of logs or database tables. By using vRealize Business Enterprise Edition, you can automate your service level agreements and be able to provide the required information to management. Here you can see a typical example of a service level agreement. Each line in the SLA is called a business rule, and you will probably notice that many of them are very similar, facilitating the use of templates. Take a moment to read the business rules and understand their significance. Once the data in the business rules has been processed, you can view a summary in the compliance report. The compliance report contains a list of all the business rules and displays the expected or minimum target for each rule. For each month, you can see the target value, which is color-coded red, yellow, or green, so you can see at a glance which ones have complied and which have breached. One of the great added values of vRealize Business Enterprise is that you don't need to wait until the end of the month to find out that you have breached and will incur penalties. For this reason, many providers have purchased vRealize Business Enterprise to check their own compliance levels. If the provider is close to breach on the 20th of the month, he will receive an alert. In this way, the provider can take corrective action and prevent breach when the end of the month arrives. I'd like to summarize how we get data into vRealize Business Enterprise and process this data. You'll probably notice that this is extremely similar to the structure within vRealize Business Advanced, with the exception of the third step. So here again are the main steps. First, to set up adapters to collect data from external data sources, such as flat files, database tables, or web forms. Second, to manipulate the data using flows. Each flow contains a set of operators that can filter data, add new data fields, join multiple data sources, or aggregate data by region or time period. In the third step, we create agreements with business rules to model the provider's business logic. Finally, we will display reports and dashboards in the UI. You can also email the reports or export to a spreadsheet or Word document. I'd like to spend a moment to describe the architecture of vRealize Business Advanced and Enterprise. The first thing to mention is that vRealize Business Advanced and Enterprise are one and the same application, and access to functionality relating to each edition is set during installation. vRealize Business Advanced Enterprise is not packaged as a vApp. Rather, it is installed as a Java application using an installer in which you can easily select configuration options. It can also be installed on Windows or Linux operating systems. vRealize Business Advanced Enterprise consists of a Java application pre-packaged within a Tomcat application server. The data resides in an Oracle database schema, meaning that you first need to install the Oracle database. Since many customers don't want to go to the bother of purchasing and installing the database, and may not have an in-house Oracle DBA, many of our customers' instances are hosted at VMware. As mentioned, vRealize Business Advanced Enterprise can import data from a large variety of external data sources, such as flat files, database tables, web forms, or even data from vRealize Business Standard. All of the data is imported into the Oracle database, and that is where it is processed. Since vRealize Business Advanced Enterprise is highly configurable, it is possible to troubleshoot directly from the UI without any need to ever access the database or the operating system. For example, you can run SQL statements within the UI, or cause extra debugging printouts to be written to the log. You can also configure the way the logs are downloaded by requesting just a certain type of log, or just say the last 500 lines. In this last slide, I'd like to summarize the features of the 3 vRealize Business editions side by side. In vRealize Business Standard, we answer the question, how much does my virtual machine cost? You can discover the cost of your virtual data center and compare the cost for private and public cloud offerings. You can find out which business units are consuming most of the services and check if they are within budget. In vRealize Business Advanced, we answer the question, how much does my IT cost? You can evaluate the full cost of your IT by importing data from a broad range of enterprise systems, by using the default cost model or modifying it, and by using out-of-the-box or customized dashboards and reporting. In vRealize Business Enterprise, we answer the question, are my IT providers complying with their SLAs? You can define IT service levels, collect data from a broad range of data sources, and manage them using a flexible interface. You can display or distribute detailed compliance reports. Most importantly, you can receive breach alert warnings before the end of the month in order that corrective action can be taken and penalties avoided. For more information about vRealize Business, please feel free to refer to the online documentation or our knowledge base.